Hey there, welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to really understand biological structures without getting, totally lost in the weeds, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're going to master a very specific foundational anatomical diagram together. We're not just going to memorize some static checklist, we're going to transform this biological illustration into a dynamic, living roadmap of the human heart. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how to navigate this incredible biological engine. So, looking directly at our source material, we've got a pretty clear directive. Be able to identify numbered parts in this diagram of the heart. Specifically, our checklist demands that we locate all the blood vessels, all the chambers, the septum, the valves, and this really interesting structure called the chordae tendinea. Now, I know, it sounds like a whole lot of Latin and heavy medical jargon, but don't worry, we're going to break it all down visually so it makes perfect sense. To conquer this diagram, we're taking a guided tour room by room. We'll cover the heart's architecture, the chambers, the vital valves, the heartstrings and septum, and finally, the major blood vessels. Consider this your ultimate cheat sheet. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the heart's architecture. To really grasp the big picture of this biological engine, we're looking at a specific type of view called a cross-section. Basically, that means the front wall of the heart has been virtually sliced open and removed so we can see all the hidden internal plumbing. It's kind of like how you can't understand a house just by staring at the front door. You need to look inside at the floor plan, right? That's exactly what this illustration does. It gives us full access to every single structure we need to identify. Moving right along to section 2, chambers of the heart. Let's lock in exactly what the main pistons of our pump actually are. Chambers are, well, they're simply the hollow, muscular spaces inside the heart that receive and pump blood. Think of them as the primary loading zones and launching pads for your blood. Notice the distinct dark purplish-red hollow cavities on both the left and right sides of the image here. You've got these upper loading rooms and larger lower pumping rooms. These distinct hollow spaces, those are your chambers. Whenever you're asked to identify a chamber on a diagram like this, just look for the large, open, cave-like spaces right inside the muscular walls. Next up is section 3, the vital valves. Now, every room needs doors. And in a crazy high-pressure system like the heart, let me ask you a really crucial functional question. Your heart beats around 100,000 times a day, creating an immense amount of pressure to push blood through miles and miles of vessels. So what keeps blood flowing in only one direction under all that extreme pressure? Why doesn't it just splash backward into the chamber it just came from? The answer, of course, is the valves. These are one-way biological gates located between chambers and vessels to absolutely prevent the backflow of blood. Their sole purpose is to snap shut, ensuring that a single drop of blood only ever moves forward on its journey. Pretty amazing, right? Take a look at the prominent white, almost parachute or flap-like structures sitting right between the upper and lower chambers. You can see them super clearly on both the left and the right sides of the cross-section. Those are the valves you need to identify. They open up to let the blood drop down, and then boom, they catch the fluid and slam shut the second that bottom chamber squeezes. Let's dive into section 4, heartstrings and septum. To keep this intense high-pressure system from literally collapsing in on itself, we have some serious heavy-duty structural reinforcements. Let's start with the septum. The septum is the thick, central muscular wall that completely divides the right and left sides of the heart. Think of it as the heavy load-bearing wall dividing the two sides of a duplex. Right down the center, do you see that thick, solid pink, textured muscular strip running directly vertically down the middle? The one separating the two large lower chambers? Yep, that is your septum. It is a massive central pillar of muscle. Now, for a really fascinating mechanical question. When those lower chambers squeeze to blast blood out into the body, the pressure against those white valve doors is literally immense. So what keeps those white flaps from just blowing inside out and flipping backwards into the upper chambers? Exactly like a cheap umbrella in a violent windstorm? Well, the answer introduces one of the most highly specific anatomical terms from our source checklist, the chordae tendinea. These are tough, fibrous cords that anchor the valve flaps directly to the inner muscular walls of the chambers. They are quite literally your heartstrings, and they serve an absolutely critical functional purpose in stabilizing those one-way doors, so they hold firm against all that pressure. Look really closely at the bottom of those white valve flaps. Do you see the tiny, white, stringy threads attaching the edges of the valves down to the textured pink chamber walls below? Those tiny strings, those are the chordae tendineae you absolutely must know for your checklist. They pull tight right when the door shuts to keep it perfectly in place. It's a brilliant piece of engineering. Finally, we hit Section 5, the major blood vessels. Our guided tour brings us out of the internal rooms and onto the major highways branching off the top of the heart. Now, our source prompt asks us to know all the blood vessels. To make that way simpler, we can broadly categorize these massive tubes into two main pipelines. We have incoming vessels, which bring blood into the chambers, and outgoing vessels, which carry blood away from the heart. Check out the prominent blue and red tubes emerging from the top and the sides of the muscular base. These represent the intricate network of blood vessels. Now, the artist used blue and red to differentiate the types of blood they carry, but for your checklist, you just need to recognize that these thick, pipe-like extensions at the very top of the structure are the vessels you need to be able to point out. So let's see how this all builds into the functional journey of a blood drop we've been piecing together, connecting all the parts from our source material. First, blood travels in through the incoming vessels. Second, it fills the chambers and passes safely through the valves. And third, the heart squeezes and the blood exits forcefully via those large outgoing vessels. By breaking down this source material logically and assigning a functional story to each shape, you now possess the complete visual blueprint. You aren't just looking at random shapes anymore. You can clearly see the vessels up top, the open chambers inside, that thick dividing septum in the middle, the white valve doors, and the tiny heartstrings holding the whole shebang together. You're fully equipped to totally ace any diagram identification based on this image. Learning complex anatomy definitely doesn't have to mean staring at a textbook until your eyes blur. When you structure your learning visually, it just clicks. So here's my question for you. Now that you've mastered the ultimate engine, are you ready to map the rest of the human body? Keep this visual learning technique in your back pocket for your next big anatomical challenge. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely stay curious.